All right. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Today is a very exciting day because today is our very first episode of MyFi Resources. MyFi Resources will be an informational platform that will seek to discuss topics of personal finance and financial literacy. Now, today is very exciting because I have Neale Godfrey joining me today. Neale has over 30 years of experience within this field and has many publications and has also appeared on Oprah as a family finance expert. So without further ado, Neale, thank you for joining me today.
It is great to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. So I obviously had my, chance to do my due diligence and kind of, look into some of your work and your background. But I guess for the audience, could you just give us a quick introduction of yourself?
Oh, Jonathan, I'll condense it for you. I
Gotcha.
was one of the first female executives in banking in the United States. I started my career at age 21 in 1972 at Chase Manhattan Bank, where Chase decided that it would experiment to hire a few women to become actual executives and bankers. I was one of them. I rose through the ranks, became an executive, and did merger and acquisition work, leverage buyouts. I also headed up a global division in the corporate bank, and I was lucky enough to put together in 1980 the largest merger in the history of the United States, which was the DuPont Conoco merger. And it was the first time, Jonathan, that we had done billions in the marketplace. And I had 1 week to put together $4 billion. And what was really cool is
Wow.
I was reporting actually to the president and chairman and David Rockefeller, who was still there. What was cool is we never did billions in the market, Jonathan. And I
Mhm.
woke up in a cold sweat on the Thursday before we were going to market and said, I wonder if we can take billions in our computers. And the answer was no. So Chase Manhattan Bank brought 1,500 computer programmers in. They worked from Thursday to Monday when we went to market with $4 billion to put those extra 3 zeros in there. Can you imagine? I mean, those are the times. Anyway, I hit the glass ceiling, which was kryptonite in those days, as an executive after 13 years, and then became president of the first women's bank. And that was a little bank in New York. And we needed a women's bank because the Fair Credit Act had not been enacted until 1974, which meant women could not get credit with their own signature. My first
Wow.
credit card at Chase, and I was the executive at Chase Manhattan Bank, had to have my husband's name on it with a permission slip from him for me
Wow.
to use my own credit. Can you imagine that, Jonathan?
I could not imagine that, to be honest.
I
Especially,
mean,
seems like it was very recent, somewhat
well,
recent.
it's not that long ago. I'm
Right.
still walking around, working and talking. I'm here with you. So it's not
Yep.
that long ago. So we needed a women's bank because women needed credit. So when I was there as president of the bank, I saw women be disempowered handling their own money, and that seemed goofy. I did research, and it was because we were never taught anything about money when we were kids. So I was at that point a single mom of 2 little kids, and I schlepped them around to look for books at every bookstore in New York. And there were no books in the 1980s to teach children about money. So at one of the bookstores, my little 2-year-old daughter said to me, Mommy, rather than take us to all these bookstores, why don't you just write the books? So Jonathan, she saw that look on my face, which was, whoa, I know how to be a bank president and do big deals. I don't know how to write a book. And she saw the look on my face and she said to me, oh, Mommy, you're afraid. So, okay, the gauntlet was thrown. I crouched, established eye contact with this little 3-year-old and said, no, I'm not afraid. But of course I was afraid. I didn't know how to write books. I knew how to run a bank. So I figured it out. I wrote the kids' money book. I created cartoon characters to entertain and educate our kids about money. And we're connected through money by the way we handle money, not how much money we have. Wrote the book. And if you're going to write a book, you go to the world's largest publisher, which was Simon & Schuster. And I said, ta-da, I wrote the kids' money book. We can educate and entertain our children to be financially literate. And they said, thanks for stopping by. There are no books to teach kids about money. It's not a topic of interest. So you know the deal, Jonathan, don't cry in front of them. So I made it outside, burst into tears, walking around, carrying my manuscript. And then I thought, you know what? They need proof of concept. So I opened up the first children's bank, a real bank for kids at the toy store, FAO Schwarz, and an institute for youth entrepreneurship up in Harlem for Black and Latinx kids. I started a greeting card company with them. Both were very successful. In fact, Princess Diana flew over with the royal children to open up accounts for Prince Harry and Prince William at the first children's bank. Went back to Simon & Schuster and said, ta-da, proof of concept. And they said, thanks for stopping by. There still are no books. We're not going to take a risk. So back in tears, back out to the street, made it about 2 blocks and said, oh, come on, put your big girl panties on. You know how to do mergers and acquisitions and leverage buyouts. So I bought a publishing company. I bought a division of Macmillan under the proviso that they would publish my book. And obviously I mentioned to them that I could fire all of them. So they decided to publish my first book. So they published the kids' money book. We sold 50,000 copies. I sold the company, went back to Simon & Schuster. They were then willing to take me on as a property. Then one day the telephone rang, and my market is to talk to parents at home, kids at home, and kids at school and after school, and to work with corporations and other people who care about educating our youth to take charge of their financial future. The phone rang. My daughter picked it up, and she was 10 years old at this point, and said, Mommy, Oprah is on the phone. And I said, no. Oprah is not on the phone. I have a friend who does Oprah impersonations. Give me the phone. So I was doing Oprah to Oprah, which was go girl, give it your best shot, climb every mountain. I was a jerk. So my daughter held up a piece of paper and it said, you can ruin your life, but don't ruin mine. It's Oprah, cut it out. It was Oprah. And I appeared on Oprah for 4.5 years. I did 13 shows. That book hit #1 in the New York Times bestseller list. And I also created the first money curricula for kids and morphed into doing gaming with an app for kids, actually 3 apps for kids. Had my characters get a facelift. I partnered with Tom Hester, who did Shrek. He redesigned my characters. And I'm working on my 29th book. I've served about 20 million parents and kids. I'm also an executive in residence at the Columbia Graduate School of Business. And I mentor and teach the next generation of kids like yourself coming out into the world to be financial executives. I also work with wounded veterans out of the university, out of Syracuse University, to help our vets become entrepreneurs. And I also still work with at-risk children. I've served probably over 500,000 at-risk kids to help them design their future out of Deloitte Foundation, and we were honored by the White House. So I love what I do. I get to keep doing it and work with great people like you, Jonathan. So it was a long introduction, but that's who I am.
No, yeah, that was great. And I think that's fantastic. And you've just been doing it for so long. The impact that you've had on people is definitely significant. But I wanted to go back to that, the Fair Credit Act that you shared. Why aren't these resources being implemented?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that culturally in the United States, that polite people didn't talk about money. And in the traditional family of, really since the beginning, women were home raising kids, being in essence taken care of, and men were out in the workforce. So women were not accepted out in the world as being viable candidates to hold any responsible jobs. Women held pink collar jobs, which meant that they were assistants. So they were a nurse to the male doctor, or they were secretary to the male executive. That's what they were, or they were allowed to be teachers because, again, traditionally, single women were allowed to be teachers when you look at the history of the United States. And those traditions carried on from generation to generation. And even my grandmother and mother were told, don't worry, you're taken care of by the men in the family, which, by the way, means nothing. So, I don't know what those words mean. If I said to you, don't worry, you're going to be taken care of, you don't know what that means. What does that mean? So divorce rates were very low. Women were traditionally home raising the kids. They were not really in the workforce. So that's what happened. And those old traditions carried on. Think about it. Jonathan, we didn't get the vote until 1920. Women were not permitted to vote. And we see that. And we see what happens when those old stereotypes carry on. Think about slavery in our nation and all those things that hung on culturally. And we see it today. And it's the same exact mentality of keeping those old traditions in place and not jeopardizing what everyone has done in the past. So we had to take a stand. And it wasn't until 1974. I mean, before that, a man had to sign for a woman. I tried to buy a property in 72 and couldn't. I was absolutely told by the bank, your credit doesn't count. So here we are. My credit counts today. And fortunately, we now have the laws on our side.
Right, right. And so I had the opportunity to read and listen to your book, Money Doesn't Grow on Trees. And it seems like that was more geared towards parents with kids and kind of introducing money as a concept of value. So what do you, and I believe that, our current habits translate into, or they correlate from our early teachings. And I believe that you touch up on that a lot in your book. Could you just kind of dive into that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, what we have to do is we've kept kids out of the monetary system. And then when they're teenagers, we all of a sudden say, oh my God, you're spending all this money. You're financially illiterate. Well, wait a minute. That's like waiting to potty train them, Jonathan, until they're 18 years old. I mean, are you kidding? So we need to teach the values and life skills that our kids need to live in the real world. And money is one of them. And we teach about a lot of other incredibly important things, but you have to deal with money every day of your life. Even if you're not spending money, your rent is ticking, your mortgage is ticking, your car loan is ticking, your credit card bills are mounting up. We spend money. This is an essential life skill. So when I started looking at this, it was, we've got to start these kids earning, to earn, spend, share, and save. That's what we need to do. And we need to raise them understanding that money is a part of life and that it's not a secret and it's something that we need to be comfortable with, and that you get to design the financial life you want. If you don't, by the way, others will step in and handle it for you. Is that what you want? And that's the choice I give people.
Mhm. Right. And, I see that many times I feel like there's a negative connotation with kind of knowing a lot of, about money, maybe tips and strategies, for some odd reason. For instance, we can put budgeting as an example. For some reason, we all kind of have this connotation where we assume that we can budget in our head, but more often than not, that's not the case, and we fall short of our goals. So I kind of wanted to just touch up on some tools and strategies that we could implement, even today, and kind of the best ways to go about retaining these strategies so that it's not just a 1 week thing or 2 week thing.
That's great. I mean, in fact, with New Year's resolutions, the first resolution is always health and fitness. So everybody, the gym memberships go up in January. By February, people stop going to the gyms. And that's what happens with budget. The number 2 resolution is money. I'm going to get on that budget. I'm going to do it. Well, the whole thing is people, as you said, look at budgeting as an object of torture. It's not. It's your roadmap. You get to decide. You get to design the future that you want. But we get very, very short-sighted, Jonathan. You know that. It's just like, you're driving by that fast food restaurant. It would be really easy to go in, and you know what? It calls out to you, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. And budgeting is the same thing. Oh man, I really want the whatever. I'm going to get it. So instant gratification with a lot of people wins out. And the problem is we know what happens in the future. It's the same thing with our body. Look at the type 2 diabetes numbers in our country. Look at the obesity numbers in our country. Look at the health problems in our country. Well, you can't keep pushing it off. It catches up with you. And it's the same thing with money. And my thing is, you decide. I help people to look down the road. What do you want your future to look like? It's going to happen. And either you design it or someone else is going to design it. So I have people pick goals. I'm not going to pick them. You tell me what you want, and then I'll help you get there. And this is what you have to cut out. And you have to look at that instant gratification. People spend money on stuff that isn't really going to make them happy. Is it going to make you happier to have a vacation or have designer coffee every day? I don't care what your decision is. You get to choose. So figure out how to get coffee that's cheaper, or make it at home and bring it. Same thing with water. Same little tiny things you can change. You tell me what you want. And by the way, if you're not saving for your future and your retirement, it's going to happen. Do you want to end up in poverty? Do you want to end up having a life that's okay? Do you know that 1 in 4 women retire into poverty? Think about that. Is that scary? Scares me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely believe that, our financial strategy is based upon our goals and, what we ultimately see for ourselves in the long term. But the instant gratification is something that definitely just is definitely an obstacle in, us pursuing these goals. But I think it's a lot easier said than done. Having a set goal in mind and kind of resisting all these urges. But I think kind of what I just wanted to explore is what would be the best way to kind of stick to a regimen, regardless of the environment and the situation that you may be in and all the temptations.
First of all, what you have to do is go back and look at your spending patterns and come clean with yourself. Look at your debit card, look at your credit card, look at how you've been spending money, and make choices. I want this, I want this, I want this, I need this, I need this. And decide your wants and needs and what you're willing to give up. And then literally write down the goals that you want. What do you want to save for? What do you want life to look like? You want to buy a car? You want to buy a house? I don't know. You decide. And you will need to put some money away for retirement. It just is that way. Social Security is not going to be enough. And when you get that job, make sure you max out your 401k, max it out. And then decide, hey, I'm not going to give up that night, with my friends. Well, suppose you decide, is it about being at the place or is it being with your friends? And 90% of the people are going to say being with your friends. So figure it out to do it a different way. Go get pizza. Everyone get together and do a potluck. Go to somebody's apartment. Figure it out. You're going to have just as much time and fun, but it's not going to cost you all $50 to $100 buying expensive stuff. When you're doing clothing, decide, is it really worth it to have the sneakers that cost $500? I'm not going to make that decision. You make the decision. But what are you going to give up to get that? What's that going to do for you? I love recycling clothing. I love eBay. I mean, how cool is that? And just decide what's important to you and why. Who are you? What are your values? And by the way, are you paying it forward? Are you giving money to charity? Are you donating time? Who are you? What do you want your legacy to be? Is it going to be, wow, mom or dad had really cool clothes? Or mom and dad helped people to build a home, or fed people that needed meals, or saved animals that needed saving? Is that what you want? You decide. And how are you going to get there?
Absolutely. And so I wanted to kind of discuss kind of the educational boards and pretty much why we haven't really seen like a ramp up of these resources and kind of curriculum being implemented in the school systems. And from your perspective, I kind of wanted to touch upon why, or the difficulties in doing so.
I started this topic in the 80s. I started literally lobbying the government and states to get them to mandate the teaching. Let's go back to, we always do things the way we did it. The teachers of mathematics decided that money was not really that important, that it was going to be picked up in other curricula. We live in the largest capitalistic nation in the world. We are absolutely proud of that. There are only 17 states that teach or mandate financial literacy. I started lobbying. The first state that I could get to agree to this was Ohio in 1986. I stopped lobbying, Jonathan, because it took so much of my time. I was on White House task force. I was on governor's task force. I was on senatorial task forces trying to get school systems to approve it. 17 out of 50. And my state of New Jersey, we require 2.5 hours of financial literacy in senior year in high school, and it gets shoved to the end of school. Jonathan, how excited are you as a senior when in the last half of the year? Tell me about that. Where is your head? So I just stopped and I decided I'm going to do it privately. So what I did is I try to work with corporations who share my zeal for that we have to get together and do this. So I've worked with a lot of banks and financial institutions to put the curricula in and to teach our lessons. And I've done it through after school programs. It is not part of our core curricula. Right. It should be. It's not.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's just an astonishing number, the 17 out of 50. Do you think that we'll ever get to that 50 out of 50 states?
I don't know. I mean, I go through life we all need to do what we can do. And I don't know the answer to that. I think it's an abomination, but rather than, knock my head against the wall, I'm trying to go from the bottom up. And there are lots of institutions that share that. And I work with private companies that also share that zest for educating our kids. One of the companies that I'm on the board of advisors for is called Greenlight, and they're a debit card for kids, and they have educational lessons, and they, are working through parents and kids to help them to become financial literate. And we all have to do it. So we do what we can do, and the people you can touch. And we're getting there. We're certainly not there.
Right. So, going back to, the kids, I guess you could say post high school or post college graduate, what would you believe, or what do you believe is kind of the imperative, tools and things to implement at this point in time in their career?
The if you haven't had a financial vehicle that you've been working with, it's time, if you're in college, that you need a credit card. You need a credit card to uh, function in today's world. Yes, of course, you need a debit card, but you have to understand that credit is a privilege and not a right. And messing that up can really impact your life. It's going to give you a low credit score. It may keep you from getting a job, because there are a lot of employers who are allowed to look at your credit and how you've handled it. And it shows them if you are responsible or not. You can even get a less than honorable discharge from the military in our country if you've messed up your credit. And go try to get a job as an ex-military person who's been discharged for a less than honorable discharge. So it's something that costs you money and really impacts your life. So it's one of those tools that you need to build a happy and healthy life. The better credit you have, the more credit and the cheaper credit you can get.
Hmm. So what are your kind of takes on student loans? Because it seems that uh, even before most kids even have credit cards, that they're jumping into student loans, whether it's by cosign, but following the post graduation, I believe this. I saw statistics saying that roughly $20,000 in a 4-year school, and then for Ivy League school, it can be upwards of 100,000 loans. So, what do you think is like the best way to approach student loans? As a the individual taking on the loan, but also as a parent guiding and ensuring that these loans are being paid correctly and accordingly.
Well, first of all, I want you to sit down and do a budget with your parents. And your parents, hopefully, have started saving when you were a little kid. My thing is, rather than buy all those ridiculous gifts for kids, that a 529 or some savings vehicle should have been set up when the kids are born. And again, you drip into that. We don't need the sneakers. I'm going to buy you sneakers that cost $35. And guess what? More money is going to go into your college savings. The kids don't understand, but I don't care when they're 4 years old that they understand. They don't have to. You as a parent understand. I want the parent to come clean with the kid. If you know you can't afford an expensive Ivy League school, don't set your kid up for failure. Don't say to them, work really hard, go get into the school. And then when the kid is 17 years old, say, by the way, I can't afford it. That's not fair. Start early with the child. And there are techniques that you can use to reduce the cost of college. One, the kids can take AP courses within high school and get some college credit. They can go to college, sometimes doing summer school while they're still in high school, and get credit. They can go to community college for 1 or 2 years and transfer into a private school after that. That reduces the cost. They can also take some summer school courses during their college years, as long as they get approval from the college that the credits will be accepted, and reduce it. You can go to state schools. You can go to other schools that are less expensive. Obviously, grants, scholarships, loans are all available. My thing is that there are billions of dollars of grants that go uncollected every single year. Let the kid go online and start looking at grants and add them up, 500 here, 1,000 here, 200 here, and start doing that. And obviously financial aid. And the last thing is to look at how much do you really need to borrow? How long is it going to take you to pay those loans back? There are adults that are still carrying student loans after 20 years. Now, in terms of a parent, your kid can borrow to go to college. You as a parent cannot borrow for your retirement. Do not go into your retirement savings to pay for college, no matter how much you feel guilty and adore that kid. Do not.
So I think that's very interesting. Could you kind of just, at the absolutely do not touch the retirement fund. I'm not quite there yet. So could you just kind of give me, why that is?
Because when you start dipping into your retirement money, and most people have not saved enough retirement money, you're hurting your own future. And the truth is, what's going to happen if you can't afford to live when you retire? And remember, we are living longer than we ever did. And by living longer, there's more of a chance that you're going to be unhealthy later in life. It's just a fact of matter. And then what? Are you going to become a financial burden for your kids? Is that really a smart strategy? Because who's going to take care of you? So all of a sudden, you think you're doing this great thing for your kid to go into your 401k, to go in and borrow against your IRA, to send that kid to college. How incredible. In most instances, we don't pay that money back to ourselves. And when the money's gone, then it's gone. And the miracle of compounding no longer exists. So start that retirement money, put it away, and sit down and explain this to your child, but don't wait until they're 17. Talk to them when they're kids. This is what the strategy is going to be. This is what I think I can afford. Let's talk about what makes sense for you.
Mhm. Got it. So say I've done all these budgeting. I've hit my target budgeting goal for the month. What do you believe, what is your take on a savings account or any other investment vehicles other than just, saving the budget for a goal in mind, maybe that's, an item or something of value, in terms of, allocating your resources and saving and investing. What is your take on, someone from a postgraduate of high school or college perspective?
I think you all should be investing. You need emergency money sitting in a bank, let's say $500, whatever that is, that you can draw on it really quickly. But you all need an investment account. Go to a discount broker, sit down, and don't be clever. Do not think that you're smarter than the market, because nobody is. Day traders who trade every single minute, sitting there watching the market, who are experts, only 10% of them really end up making good money. That's not a good percentage. So don't listen to the hot tip from your friend. Don't listen to what somebody says. Do not market time. And market timing is trying to guess when the market's going up and try to guess when the market's going to go down. Don't, because what happens with us psychologically is when the market starts to go down, we panic and we sell. And when the market starts to go up, you jump in and you buy. So it means, by definition, you buy at the high and sell at the low, which is exactly the opposite of what you should do as a smart investor. Mutual funds are great. It's a basket of stock. And you can even do something that's an index fund. It's following the Dow, it's following NASDAQ. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do some crazy stuff. You're young, Jonathan. Take a portion of your portfolio, maybe 5%, and invest in crypto. That's great. That's super. That's the money you could take to the casino and afford to lose. But don't have a whole crypto portfolio. Just like I don't want anyone to have a whole gold portfolio. I want you to be diversified. And on average, over time, the stock market is going to be your best indicator of return.
Right. Right. And I've always heard this term, kind of only invest what you can afford. And I believe for crypto specifically, that's something that I follow. And I think when I think crypto, I think more long term. Also, when I think of index funds, I think long term as well. So, and I feel there's this negative connotation with savings account. Having money within a savings account. So I think it is important to diversify your portfolio within many channels and avenues. So from an entrepreneur's perspective, what do you believe are some like key pointers and facts that people should consider when first starting out and venturing off into their own business and generating income?
That's a great question, Jonathan, because the fact of the matter is not everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur. And it's the new sexy in terms of I want to be an entrepreneur. Number one, you need to solve a problem as an entrepreneur that needs to be solved. What is it that you're trying to solve? Do we need better dry cleaning? Do we need better financial advice? What do we need? Do you care about that? Number one. And how is the problem being solved now? And can you do it better? If all those things, you come up empty with all of that, you probably haven't come up with a good problem, a need that needs to be solved. Then the other thing is, what are you willing to risk to get that? Are you willing to really finance this yourself? Can you convince other people that they should be joining you in this? And are you willing to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning in a cold sweat that you're panicked about how you're going to meet, the needs, the financial needs that you've gotten, yourself, the hole that you may have dug for yourself. Also know that you need to surround yourself with people who have different talents than you have. You can't do it all. And most entrepreneurs think that they can, and they can't. And that's also how they fail. Put a toe in the water. Do a life hack. Try to see if it works and listen to your customer. But know who your customer is. Know who that person is that's buying your product. Know what they want. Know where they eat. Know where they sleep. Know what their habits are. And why would they buy your product? And then you have to figure out how to let everybody know that you're here.
Yeah, that's and it's all things that I'm taking away at this moment as I kind of just go through the daily, the day to day of operating my own business. But so we are near the end of our timer. Do you have any last remarks?
I think the whole thing is that you want to set your life up to enjoy it. You don't want budgeting to be a problem. You don't want all of this to be another burden. I can't have any more, stress in my life. Well, set it up so it's not. Set it up so that you celebrate. Set goals for yourself and you met it and celebrate it and tell get an investing club together with your friends. Not that you're going to be stupid about, betting and winning, but you're going to do it together. Hey man, let's all go in and set up accounts together. Let's do this. So make it fun, make it interesting. Get involved in investing. It's cool. Get involved in crypto a little bit. Do it and have it fun and be part of your life. And just know that you have to do that. Get your friends together and go do something charitable. There are a lot of soup kitchens who need people. There are a lot of people who need help. A lot of people. And go figure it out. Go have fun with it. And make it part of who you are and something you can be proud of.
And for the direction of curriculum in the U.S.? What do you think? Hopefully in the future, what do you think this lies ahead of us?
I'm never going to give up. I'm working on my 29th book to empower people to take charge of their financial lives. And I'm going to keep doing it and find other people who want to do it. And, when you speak to your congressperson, say, hey, how come? How come we're still financially illiterate? How come people still have debt? How come? And let's work together to change that. And when you have kids someday, raise them to be financially literate and what that means.
Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Neil, for your time. I think this was incredibly insightful. I look forward to your new upcoming book. Is there a name or title yet for this?
Well, the current book that I just released during COVID is called Be Money Smart in Tough Times for Parents and Grandparents. And that's available on Amazon. And that's the book that parents and grandparents should buy right now. My next book is going to be for women on gray divorce. Gray divorce is divorce over 50. It's the largest segment that's growing in divorce among people in the United States. So it's a brand new trend that's been happening over the last 10 years, and it's caught everybody by surprise. And I want to empower the women who are doing this to make sure they design the future, financial future that they want.
Wow, I love it. I think you have great purpose. You wake up every day looking to motivate and educate people. I think that's fantastic. Um, and so you also have your own website that people can check out with more resources at. It's nealegodfrey.com.
Yes, absolutely. And it's NEALEGODFREY.com. Join me, join the conversation, and we need to do this together. And I do speaking engagements. I work with corporations who want to also be in the financial literacy world. And I'm here to help. And as you said, it's my passion, and I'm going to keep doing it.
Great. Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you for your time again, Neil, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks. Thanks, Jonathan.